have all our judges?
I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Make sure you get the right number there. Oh, that's about my own, but.
Yeah, and then there's also just, I mean,
A
if
little
it's
reminder
the same
thing.
people might look like.
Yeah. Gotcha. How you doing? Hi.
Hi.
Would you let me know when I can start? I am ready to go here.
Good to go, no?
I just lost my little thing here. Okay. Okay. All right. Call the case of Estate of Maximilian versus Lampert Family Carnival. Are both sides ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, but before we get to opening statements, can we just make introductions?
Of course.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Maxwell William Maximilian Fritsch, and today I'm joined by my co-counsel, Mr. Josiah Jones.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
And we'll also be joined by Mr. Samuel Farnsworth. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Introductions for the defense, Your Honor.
Yes.
If we're doing full name, I'm Graham Isaac Gumbenhout, and I am joined with my co-counsel, Ms. Ronnie Kane,
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Mr. Gordon Gwilt,
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Miss Eleanor Mancina,
Good morning, Your Honor.
and Miss Claire Humphrey.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Would you like housekeeping matters from the plaintiff?
Yes, please.
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to direct your attention to the pretrial order, number 1. Let me know when you're there.
Okay, give me a second.
It's going to be after the
After the
stipulation.
steps, yeah. Yeah, got it.
Okay, we'd just like to flag that pursuant to Judge Rosenthal's ruling, after the plaintiff moved to hold defendant vicariously liable for the conduct of the following current and former defendant employees, Angel Ashmore, Nick Snacky, and Legacy Lampert, and that motion was granted. So those employees their actions are held as vicariously liable.
Duly noted.
And with that, we're ready to proceed to opening statements.
All right, great. Anything from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor, just one quick housekeeping matter. If you could turn back to the stipulations tab that you just passed.
I'll do that.
We're looking at stipulation number 8.
Yes.
All it says is that all objections under Rule 401 and 403, that's relevance and substantially more prejudicial than probative or rules of that nature, they've all been waived for the witnesses in today's trial.
I'm aware of that, but thank you for pointing it out.
And with that, Your Honor, we're ready to proceed as well.
Thank you. All right, let's start with the plaintiff. Would you like to present your opening statement?
We would, Your Honor. May I please court?
Yes.
This defendant was careless, and it killed him. It's July 14th, 2023. And Max the Magnificent, a magician, is getting ready for his final trick. Takes a deep breath, lines up about 30 feet away from his assistant, and stares down the barrel of a gun. He's not scared. He trusts that the company he's been working with is going to load blank bullets into that gun to make sure this magic trick is safe. What he doesn't know is that just one night before, one of this defendant's employees was loading actual bullets into that gun. What he doesn't know is they've been storing live ammunition right next to the blank bullets that they were supposed to use. And what he doesn't know is he's about to be shot at with live ammunition. Mr. Maximilian died that day. This defendant was careless. And it killed him. That's why we're here. That's why we're suing the defendant in this trial, Lampert Family Carnival, for recklessness. What that means is we're going to prove to you today that it was their reckless decisions that killed Mr. Maximilian. We're going to do that by calling two witnesses for you today. The first person you're going to hear from is a woman named Gabby Gray. She was the assistant to Mr. Maximilian as he was doing this magic trick. She's going to recount for you the events that led up to this trial, but more than that, she's going to walk you through some of the promises that this defendant made in order to protect Mr. Maximilian. You're going to hear that they promised that they would not load actual bullets into that gun, that they promised that they would use blanks, that they promised that they would be safe. What you're going to find out is that they broke each of those promises. Because when Miss Gray aimed that gun at Mr. Maximilian, expecting it to have a blank, and pulled the trigger, Mr. Maximilian died. It's going to take us to our second witness. We're going to call for you Miss Talula Udden. She's going to walk you through the defendant's reckless action in this case. She's going to explain to you how actual bullets got into that gun. She's going to take this stand today and walk you through how she saw the defendant's prop master, the person responsible for storing that ammo safely, failed to do his job. She's going to tell you how one night before that crucial trick that killed Mr. Maximilian, she saw that prop master loading actual bullets into the gun, passing it around from person to person at a party, allowing them to fire it willy-nilly at targets. You're going to hear through Miss Udden's testimony about this defendant's reckless action putting actual bullets into the gun that killed Mr. Maximilian. We expect throughout this trial that you might have to compare the credibility of a couple of witnesses today. That eyewitness I was just talking about, she's going to take this stand and tell you why she's here. That she's testifying as part of a plea deal that requires her to tell the truth. We also expect you're going to hear from an eyewitness from the defense today. We have no doubt that he's going to be charming. We expect that once you look closer at his testimony, you're going to find that he has a financial stake in this case and that he still works for this defendant. See, members of the jury, this trial, it's about this defendant's careless action to load actual bullets into the gun that was going to be fired at their performer. This defendant was careless. And that's what killed him. That's why at the end of this trial, we're going to ask that you find this defendant liable for recklessness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, counsel. Defense, do you wish to make an opening statement?
We do, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, members of the jury, may it please the court. They did everything right, and something still went wrong. When we get on a roller coaster or spend our vacation whitewater rafting, we know we're taking a risk. That's what makes it so thrilling. We know that 99 times out of 100, we can do something a little dangerous, and everything will be fine. But we always know that there's a chance we do everything right, and something still goes wrong. On July 14th, 2023, a magician named Maximilian looked straight down the barrel of a gun and told his assistant to pull the trigger. Members of the jury, not one witness today will tell you that wasn't risky. Not one witness will tell you it was a good idea for Mr. Maximilian to have a gun aimed at his head. But when Mr. Jones stood before you, he told you that everything that happened that day was my client's fault. He said if Mr. Maximilian had performed that trick anywhere but the Lampert family carnival, he'd still be here. Members of the jury, it's not that simple. You see, you're going to learn that when the carnival hired Mr. Maximilian, he told them that he'd done that trick before. He said, hey, I know how dangerous that trick can be. It can go wrong, even on the best of days. And even though it was the magician's job to perform that trick, you're going to hear that my client took precautions to try to protect him. The carnival did their job right. And something still went wrong. Members of the jury, everyone in this courtroom, me and Mr. Jones agreed that what happened on July 14th was a tragedy. But this trial isn't just about loss. It's about liability. The plaintiff has brought a wrongful death lawsuit against my client. In doing so, they've taken on the burden to prove that my client was reckless and that the carnival caused Mr. Maximilian's death. But when a performer stands on stage and does something dangerous, our legal system says sometimes they assume the risk of their choices. That's why we on the defense have elected to take on a burden of our own. We're going to prove two things to you. First, that Mr. Maximilian consented to take on the risks that came with performing his trick. And second, that he was aware of those risks. We'll prove our case to you by a preponderance of the evidence. So at the end of this trial, if what we've shown you is more likely than not, then the law says that our burden, it supersedes the plaintiff's. And you have to find the carnival not liable. To prove our case to you, we're going to call two witnesses. Through their testimony, we'll show you everything the carnival did right. And we'll show you that Mr. Maximilian chose to do a trick he knew could go wrong. To show you what the carnival did right, you're going to hear from their armorer, Angel Ashmore. He'll tell you how he took care of Mr. Maximilian's gun. He tested it. He cleaned it. The armorer will tell you he did everything he could think of to make sure that gun would be safe on July 14th. And to tell you why the trick still went wrong, you're going to hear from another employee at the carnival, a performer named Nack. This eyewitness will tell you that he discussed gun safety with Mr. Maximilian. And he'll tell you that Mr. Maximilian knew what could happen. He'll tell you that Mr. Maximilian knew he was taking a risk when he had a gun pointed at his head. Now, members of the jury, I want to be clear. No one is blaming Mr. Maximilian for what happened to him. Even though Mr. Nack will tell you he knew he was taking a chance, no one is saying he wanted a catastrophe. But just because you shouldn't blame Mr. Maximilian doesn't mean you can blame my client either. Mr. Ashmore will tell you they tried to do everything right. And even Mr. Maximilian knew something could still go wrong. That's why we're asking today that you find the Lampert family carnival not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Does the plaintiff wish to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor, we call Miss Gabby Gray to the stand.
Thank you. Ms. Gray, please take the stand, and you've been previously sworn.
Yes.
May I proceed?
Of course.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi, my name is Gabby Gray.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
I'm a magician. Full-time, professionally, I do magic.
Have you always been a magician?
No, I mean, magic has been my passion my whole life, but you would be surprised. It's one of those careers that's kind of hard to break into. I was an assistant for a while, and then before that I worked at a prop store, and then another prop store, and then a third prop store. You get the idea.
Well, how did you actually become a magician?
Well, for the last 5 years, I was the assistant to Maximilian. I guess better known to you guys as Max the Magnificent.
How'd you meet Max?
We met in Paris. I was working at one of those prop stores, and I was stocking shelves. And then I bumped into somebody, so I turned, and he's a little bit taller than me. And so when I turned, right at eye level is his tie. And so the first thing I say to this perfect stranger is, "Oh, your tie's crooked." And I reach out and I fix it. I mean, obviously when I realized what I did, I wanted to melt him to the floor. But he was laughing, he was cracking up, he thought it was so funny. And the rest is history.
What would the two of you do together?
Everything. I mean, everything. We worked together, we lived together. If you're talking about magic, I was on stage with him every night. And every night before we went out, I would fix that stupid bow tie. I miss him very much.
Why do you miss him?
Because about a year ago, on the last night of a set of shows we were doing, Max passed away.
How did he pass away?
On stage during a trick. Trick is called the bullet catch. We were asked to do the trick by our employer at the time. They gave us a gun, but something went wrong, and there was nothing anybody could do for him.
Man, before we talk more about how Mr. Maximilian passed away, I want to talk more about Max. What kind of magician was he?
Well, he was a contract magician, which is the professional name for a traveling magician. You know, you do one show here, a few weekends there, and that's what we did pretty much all over the world. Up until last year, we had a residency, not a Vegas residency, but a residency in Butler County, Moratta.
Residency for whom?
For Lambert Family Carnival. They had contracted us for June and then halfway into July.
When you were hired by Lambert Family Carnival, what did they ask you to do?
Well, to perform the closing show every night. And I mean, from my perspective, we did a phenomenal job, you know? Max was catching roses, like always, crowds were big. But near the end of June, the owner called us into her office. She said, you know, she was worried about the crowd sizes, and she asked us to, you know, to do something more wow, you know, more dangerous, like the bullet catch.
Did you agree to do the bullet catch?
Well, at first we said no. We had thought about doing it, and we realized we couldn't make it work. But then she said she would sue us if we didn't go through with it. And I don't know what you think a magician makes, but it's not enough to afford a lawsuit. So we went ahead with it.
Then let's talk about what happened on the day of that trick.
Sure.
When was that?
That was July 14th last year.
How did you prepare for the trick that day?
Well, Max and I had been planning on practicing. You know, we had asked them for a gun, a new gun, and blank cartridges, blanks. Bullets, blanks. And so they'd gotten delayed. I went into the prop tent and I finally saw a container of blanks there. So I opened up the lockbox and I pulled out the gun. But when I did, it smelled like gunpowder, like somebody had been firing it.
What did you do then?
I didn't get to do anything because the prop master came running up and snatched it out of my hand.
Who was that prop master?
Angel? Ashmore? No, what is it? Angel.
What did you do after that prop master snatched the gun away from you?
Well, I asked for it back because Max and I, we wanted to practice the trick before we did it with the blanks. But he said no, that it wasn't ready yet and that he'd get it to me before the show. And then he walked away with the lockbox and the blanks and another box. And I swear on the box it said bullets.
Objection, Your Honor, at this time to hearsay. The statement of the bullets being labeled on the box, they're offering that for the truth of the matter asserted.
Quick response?
Yes, Your Honor. Under 801D2, this is a statement by a party opponent. The circumstantial evidence suggests that that bullet's label was written by the defendant.
Yes, Your Honor, we do not believe that they have laid enough foundation to state that it was actually Angel Ashmore who labeled that box with bullets. It doesn't meet that party
All right,
opponent.
I'll sustain because there has been no foundation.
Yes, Your Honor.
To qualify for that exception.
Yes, Your Honor. What happened? When did you start your show?
We started it a few hours later. I didn't see the gun again until Angel came up to me right before the show start. He pushed the lockbox into my hands and he says, there you go, Gabby, all set.
How did your show actually start?
Started like our shows always start. Max and I stood backstage and we did our ritual. I fixed his bow tie for him. And he said, you've got some hair out of place, and it wasn't, but he fixed it for me anyway, like that. And the curtain rose, and when it did, it was a full house.
What happened during the show?
We start with illusions, the flashy stuff to get the crowd cheering. And then after that, we do card tricks, and then after that, he does the escape from the water tank. I'm just telling you the stuff that we usually did, because the truth is, I don't remember it very well. Because every time I think about that show, I just think about how it ended.
How did it end?
Our grand finale, the bullet catch. See, when we'd done the bullet catch before, we staged an argument, right? So I would get mad at Max and I would stomp my foot, and he would say, Gabby, don't be like that. And I would refuse to do something else until we started yelling at each other. And I'd say, I'm tired of living in your shadow, Max. And he'd say, Gabby, what do you mean? And I'd say, it's time for Gabby to become Gabby the Great. And I'd pull the gun out. It's heavier than you think it is. I'd pull the gun out and I pointed it right at him. And I pulled the trigger and I shot him. I shot him.
What happened after you shot him?
He fell. There was blood. It sprayed. I remember vomiting for the second stage. After a while, somebody led me away. And I kept telling them I couldn't go anywhere without Max.
Ma'am, when you shot that gun, did you think there was a bullet inside?
What kind of question is that? I lived for Max. Now I live every day knowing I'm the one that pulled the trigger. The only way I can sleep at night, not thinking I should be in prison or something, is knowing that I didn't know. It wasn't my job to check. They wouldn't even let me. That was their job.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Gray.
Good afternoon.
My name is Eleanor Mancina, and I have some questions for you on behalf of the Lambert Family Carnival.
I understand.
Now, I understand that this can be difficult to talk about, but I just have some questions for you about the carnival.
I'll be fine. Can we please just get through it?
I'd like to clarify some things for the members of the jury. Ms. Gray, you never actually saw a physical bullet at the Lambert Family Carnival, have you?
No, just that day with Angel in the prop tent, he was holding a box that looked like it said bullets on it. The bullets themselves, I never saw.
So that's a yes to my question. You've never actually seen a bullet at the Lambert Family Carnival?
Loose? Of course not.
You never once saw any bullets being loaded into that gun, did you?
No, that was never supposed to happen. We told them that. Only blanks.
It's great. You don't know for certain if it was actually a bullet inside of that gun on July 14th, do you?
I pointed it at him and shot him. I don't know what else could have happened.
Is that a yes to my question? You don't know for certain that it was actually a bullet inside of that gun on July 14th?
Sure.
I want to talk about your work as Mr. Maximilian's assistant.
Sure.
You're a performer, right?
Yes, I do magic on stage.
You don't maintain your own equipment.
No.
You're
No.
not a trained armorer.
No, I am licensed to own a firearm. That's the only way we'd be permitted to do a trick like that. But somebody else is supposed to take care of the weapons.
That's right. You trust a props master to maintain your equipment, right?
Exactly, we trust them.
You know that the carnival's prop master, Angel Ashmore, was in charge of maintaining your equipment.
He was the one, yeah.
Last summer, he provided you with a gun for your performance, right?
Yeah, he did.
Now, on the day of the performance, he told us that you went to that prop tent to try and get that gun to practice with, right?
That's right.
Mr. Ashmore, he told you that the gun wasn't ready yet.
Right, he took it out of my hands.
He told you that he was going to test fire the gun, right?
He said that he needed to check it and that he would take care of everything.
That's right. He told you that he was going to check to make sure the blanks were working inside of that gun, right?
That's right. I asked him if Max and I could just do it. We'd always done it ourselves before, but he said he needed to fix some things.
So then you left the prop tent.
Right. I went to Max. I told him everything, and he said, you know, Legacy says that that Angel's the best in the business. So if that's true, it'll be fine.
And you never saw that gun again until the performance, right?
Exactly.
So you weren't with Mr. Ashmore every single time he handled that gun that day, were you?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't with him at all.
So it's possible that he checked to make sure there were blanks inside of that gun.
I certainly hope he tried, yeah.
So it's possible that he followed every single safety measure.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation. She hasn't established how this witness would know any safety measures.
This witness just testified that she's actually trained in firearm safety. She needs to do that in order to perform this trick. She's laid the foundation that she would know about the safety measures when handling a gun.
I'm not a fan of isn't it possible, because meteor strike is possible and a lot of other things are possible. I'll sustain it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sure.
Ms. Gray, you don't know for certain if the Lambert family carnival did everything right and something still went wrong.
I don't know how that's possible.
You-
I know what happened. Max and I have done that trick before, and this kind of thing has never happened to us.
That's right, Miss Gray. You know that this trick is inherently dangerous.
If you do it right, it's not supposed to be particularly dangerous, no.
You and Max, you've performed this trick before?
Yes.
In fact, Mr. Maximilian, he's performed this trick 7 times throughout his career.
That's right.
Like you said, he had to go through firearm safety training to prepare for that trick.
We did.
Mr. Maximilian, he went through firearm safety training.
He did. That's Max. He's good at everything.
Miss Gray, you know that you should never directly point a real gun at someone.
That's true when you're working with loaded firearms. But with prop guns, if it's just a blank, it's not ideal, but it was the only way to make it look realistic.
Miss Gray, you should never directly point a real gun at someone, even if there's blanks inside.
That's the advice.
But on July 14th, that's what you and Mr. Maximilian chose to do.
That's right. That's what we'd done before. It was the only way to make it look real. We didn't want to do it. We told them that it wasn't a good idea, but they said they would sue us. They said they would ruin Max's career if we didn't. I didn't know what else to do. I just trusted that they would make it safe for us.
Miss Gray, I just want to be clear here. Legacy Lambert, he didn't tell you to point the gun directly at Mr. Maximilian, did he?
No, we just said that we had to do it.
But that's a yes to my question. He never told you to point a real gun at Mr. Maximilian directly?
He told us to do the trick. That's how the trick works.
Is that a yes to my question, Miss Gray?
Sure.
Angel Ashmore, he never directly told you to point the real gun at Mr. Maximilian?
No, Angel wasn't there to give us any kind of advice about the trick. Never once.
So that was a choice that you and Mr. Maximilian made.
That's correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Messina. Any redirect?
No redirect for this witness, Your Honor. We just asked that Ms. Gray be allowed to step down.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gray. You are excused. As I understand the sequence of this trial, the defense now calls a witness.
Yes, Your
Out of
Honor.
order.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
The defense calls Angel Ashmore.
All right, Mr. Ashmore, please step forward. You've been previously sworn.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Yes. Hello? My name is Angel Ashmore.
Mr. Ashmore, what do you do for a living?
I work over at the Lampert Family Carnival. I'm the props manager over there.
Sir, what does a props manager do?
Well, the job is kind of what it sounds like. I'm the guy in charge of all of the equipment for the carnival. Because that sometimes includes things like fireworks and firearms, I'm also technically an armorer.
Sir, what kind of training do you have for that job?
Well, before I walked on the job site, none at all. But my first year there was a year-long intensive with the former props manager, who had been there for a while. He was a strict guy, former military, made me get a haircut, it didn't stick. I learned the job inside and out.
While you were at the carnival, did you ever know someone named Maximilian?
Yeah. Max was a magician who worked with us. It's a little embarrassing to offer, maybe, but I've been a fan of him for years before we actually met face to face.
Why is that?
Well, when I was a kid, my dad took me to the carnival, and we saw Max. I couldn't have been older than 13, maybe 14, but I really never forgot about it. I can't blame Max for everything about how my life turned out, but I'd be lying if I said he wasn't a huge reason I ran off and joined the circus when I was old enough.
So when did Mr. Maximilian start working with you at the carnival?
Last year, on July 1st, was his first performance, so we met, just a bit before then.
Then I want to talk about some of your interactions with Mr. Maximilian during that time. Did you ever talk about his performances?
Absolutely. By the very nature of the job, we talked a lot about equipment, so I could make sure to get Max all the things he needed. But we did have one more personal conversation about trick selection in July.
Why did you have that conversation?
So I was talking to my boss earlier that week about Max, and he explained that he was going to have Max do a trick called the bullet catch. Now, I followed magic for a while, and that made me concerned. So I asked to meet with Max and talk about it.
Did you tell Mr. Maximilian about your concerns?
I did. I asked Max to lunch, and when I got there, he said, hey, Angel, what are we doing at lunch? Because we had never hung out before. And, I told him I heard he was going to do the bullet catch, and that I didn't think he should do it. I told him that even if everything went right in the preparations, I still thought that things could go wrong.
Objection, Your Honor, you're saying?
Explain.
Yes, Your Honor, they're using this witness's statement that even if everything could go right, something could still go wrong to quite literally prove what's at the heart of their case, that even if everything went right, something could still go wrong. And if I can be heard.
Sure.
Yes, Your Honor, we expect opposing counsel is going to say this is for the effect on the listener. The issue in this case is that the witness doesn't have the expertise required to make that kind of statement and for it to be taken for its truth by the jury. Right now, we don't know how this witness could know the specifics of magic trick design or how firearm safety should be handled on set in cases like this.
All right, response.
Mr. Farnsworth is right. We are using this for the effect on the listener. That because Mr. Ashmore told Mr. Maximilian he was aware of those risks and assumed them.
All right. I'm going to overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
And instruct the jury that they're not to take this statement for its truth.
So how did Mr. Maximilian respond?
Right, so over the course of that conversation, it became clear that Max was going to do the bullet catch. So I told him, all right, that's fine. But I made him a promise that I would do everything I could in my role as a props manager to make it as safe as I possibly could.
Then I want to talk about your preparation for that trip. What equipment did Mr. Maximilian need?
Just two things, blanks and a firearm to shoot them out.
And what were you supposed to do with those items?
Simple job. Just get it ready for Max's performance. So on the day of that, that's exactly what I did. I sat down, I deconstructed the gun, I cleaned it out, I tested the blanks, and I loaded it.
So what precautions did you take while loading that gun?
Well, I promised Max I was going to be extra safe. That's exactly what I did. So I took the box of blanks and I wanted to make sure there wasn't any kind of manufacturing error. That live ammunition ended up in there. So I took them out one by one and I inspected them before I loaded them into the gun.
Sir, even after your precautions, are you aware of what happened to Mr. Maximilian?
Yeah. Look, I understand why someone might naturally assume that there was a bullet in that gun. I get it. But I did everything I was supposed to make sure one didn't end up in there. I never put bullets in that gun. I checked it, and I checked it again, and I checked it again. I tested out the blanks. As far as I know, there wasn't a bullet in that gun.
Sir, I need to ask you some questions about the night of that trek. Were you there when Mr. Maximilian was shot?
No. No, I didn't see the trig itself. I was working. But I heard the shots and then screaming, so I ran over to see what had happened.
What did you see?
When I got inside, most of the crowd had already left. And I looked up on stage and I saw Max's assistant, and she just looked like, glazed over. And then a few feet to the right, I saw Max in a pool of blood.
What did you do, sir?
I ran over to Max and I saw that he was bleeding out of his neck and his head. So I took off my sweater and wrapped his head up in it, and I wanted to put pressure on it, so I started holding him tightly against my body. I just kept telling him that we had called 911 and that help was on the way and that he was going to be okay. And he just kept whimpering and saying the words, "Help me," over and over. And then he got quiet. No, that was it.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Ashmore. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Plaintiff, any cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Ashmore. Let's talk responsibility. Sir, you had a job to do on set, didn't you?
Yes,
You told us on direct examination you were a prop master, true?
prop manager, but yeah, sure.
You were also an armorer, correct?
Yes,
It was your job to make sure firearms on set were safe, true?
yes, that's my job.
Let's talk about whether you did your job. Because, sir, you told us that you knew about the bullet catch trick, right?
Sure, I'd heard of it before.
That's where the magician Max Maximilian gets a bullet fired, pardon me, a firearm is fired towards him, true?
Yeah, you're dead on.
Now, you're supposed to put a blank in that gun, right?
Yeah.
And sir, you were the one who actually ordered the cartridges for that trick, right?
Yes, I got the bullets.
Sir, in the shipment you received, there were both blanks and actual bullets. Isn't that right?
That's right. The gun club I bought them from, they had a policy where you couldn't just buy blanks in case of a manufacturing error, the one I was talking about earlier. So they sold me 2 separate boxes, one of blanks and one not of blanks.
Actually, sir, to be clear, the blanks and bullets were in the same box, weren't they?
No,
To your testimony, the blanks and bullets weren't in the same box.
they were 2 separate boxes.
Sir, in front of you have a binder. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Could you please flip to your affidavit? If you give me a second, I'll try to find the page.
What page?
No tabs, it'll take a second.
That's okay.
Page 1. Oh, not page 1, that doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, these aren't page numbers, but it's around the middle of the binder.
Okay. Do you have a line?
Yes, sir. First, this is your affidavit, right? That you're looking at?
I think so, yeah.
If you flip to the back page, you see your signature.
Yep.
You signed this swearing to that everything inside was true, correct?
Yeah.
Could you turn to line 176 for me?
Yep.
Sir, here you then say, or line 175.
I see it.
I then took the gun as well as the boxes of ammo containing both the blanks as well as actual bullets. Did I read that correctly?
Right, the 2 boxes with the blanks and the actual bullets. There was multiple boxes.
Sir, just to be clear, here you say boxes of ammo containing both the blanks and the actual bullets. I read that right, correct?
You did. That's referring to the 2 separate boxes. One with blanks, one without blanks.
All right, sir. On direct examination, you said it was your job to try to discern what was a blank and what was a bullet, true?
Yes, and I checked it multiple times.
Well, let's talk about if you got that decision right. You'd recognize a photo of blanks and bullets if I showed them to you?
Yes.
If you could turn to Exhibit 7 in the back of your binder.
Yeah,
Let
I'll
me
be
know.
a little faster. Oh, I did.
Perfect. Sir, these are a photo of blanks and bullets that you used on set, true?
True.
Doesn't look like it's been changed in any way.
No.
At this time, we move Exhibit 7 to evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
It'll be received.
Sir, we can agree that the 3 cartridges in the back are blanks, right?
Yes, that's right. You can tell they're blanks because at the top of them they have soft material, either paper or sometimes wax.
The cartridge in the front is an actual bullet, true?
Absolutely right.
Sir, to be clear, both blanks and bullets have silver bodies, right?
Yes, they have silver bodies.
Red heads,
Sure.
around the same size.
Just about, only about an inch.
They're not very big, are they?
No, not very big, but the regular bullets, you can see the projectile sticks out just a little bit.
But we can agree it takes some focus telling those 2 apart, right?
Absolutely, and I was focused.
Let's talk about how focused you could be. Because we can agree on that day, sir, you were pulled in 100 different directions, right?
It's a big job.
Okay, I gotta make sure I got this correct because this was a lot for me to handle. Sir, is it true that there was a chimpanzee loose on the day you were loading that gun?
Chimpanzee got loose a couple hours earlier, yeah.
And it's your testimony you're 100% sure you loaded those bullets correctly?
I checked those bullets multiple times. I'm certain they were right.
Sir, part of your certainty is based on your great experience, right?
I guess I've been working there for a while.
Well, let's talk about how much experience you really have. Because when you joined the defendant's company, you had 0 years of firearm experience, is that right?
Right, they trained me on site.
Sir, the training you received with firearms was an online certificate, correct?
Sure, everybody with the National Carnival Association has to take it.
It was a 3-hour video lecture, right?
I think so, yeah.
Sir, when you say you think so, the reason you don't know so is because you fast-forwarded through it, didn't you?
I think it was on 2 or 3 times speed.
That's right, sir. It was on 3 times speed, wasn't it?
Okay,
Well, that's a yes, wasn't it?
yeah.
Then let's talk about whether that experience played a role in this case, because you were the last one who fired the gun before the trick, weren't you?
Right, after I loaded the blanks, I tested them out just to make sure they were safe.
You were the one who tested it.
Yes, I tested it.
You were the one who loaded it,
I loaded it too.
and you were the last one who touched it before it was used in this magic trick, right?
Absolutely. As soon as I was done loading it, testing it, and checking it, I put it in the lockbox and I gave it to his assistant.
Sir, you know that when that gun was used on stage, the person standing on the other end of the barrel died, true?
Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
Your Honor, may I read a stipulation onto the record at this time?
Of course,
This is stipulation 11, Your Honor.
I'm
That
there.
Max Maximilian died as a result of head injuries sustained while performing the bullet catch trick on July 14th, 2023. And then further on it says, the coroner was unable to determine the exact cause of death. The most likely cause of death was either being struck in the skull by an actual bullet, or 2, being struck in the skull by a malfunctioning blank cartridge. Both sides agree that Max's death was not the result of suicide or attempt of suicide.
Duly noted.
With that, Your Honor, may Mr. Ashmore please step down?
Yes, Mr. Ashmore, thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
Back to the plaintiff. Is this time for our break?
10-minute recess.
10-minute recess,
And you're voting.
and then we have time to do our thing.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right, we'll call the case back to order. Does the plaintiff wish to call their next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, but I believe we don't have all of the judges.
Oh, I apologize.
Remember
I
we
did
said
not
judge.
look, and I just let one judge know. Don't worry, we have 3 minutes. She needs to take out her contacts. Thank you, counsel, for pointing that out.
Well, I was gonna jump the gun there.
What?
I was ready to jump the gun
Yeah,
there.
right. That's what happens when you have the judges behind you. You can't see what's going on. So. When you start just with classes right now, start to get presentation. Okay.
Oh, classes start please.
Looks like everyone's here.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Miss Talula Udden to the stand.
All right, Ms. Sutton, please step forward, and you've been previously sworn.
May I proceed?
You may.
Okay. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Of course. Hi there. My name is Talula Udden.
Where are you from, ma'am?
I'm from the big city, Oconomowoc. We're 10 minutes from Nashotah, which is 30 minutes from Brookfield, which is 20 minutes from Milwaukee, so I do consider myself a cosmopolitan woman.
And what do you do for a living?
I work at Soft Hands Full Hearts Petting Zoo.
How do you like working there?
It's my passion. You know, the jingle, it gets me going every time. Soft hands, full hearts, don't touch the goats, private parts. We had to change it in 09 after the incident.
Well, ma'am, did you always do that?
No. Before that, I actually worked at Lampert Family Carnival.
How long had you been working there?
A while. That's where I got so good with animals, you know. When Bessie the cow moves, it's 'cause she's hungry. When Richard the goat bleats, it's time for bed, and when Carl the human barks, we call security.
Well, ma'am, while you were working at Lampert Family Carnival, did you ever meet a magician named Max Maximilian?
Oh, I sure did, the poor dear. It's a real shame what happened. I was there the whole summer he was working.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about Mr. Maximilian in a second, but first I want to talk about you. Are you receiving anything in exchange for your testimony today?
Oh, yes, in a sense. So, I got in a little bit of trouble. They call it street racing. I say you don't know how fast a cow runs until you have to chase it down. So, after that, I got a deal with the government where sometimes if they need me to come in and testify, I do it. In this case, apparently it qualifies. Here I am.
Are there conditions to that agreement?
Yes, I have to be useful and truthful. If they found out I was making something up, poof, it goes away.
All right, ma'am. Then let's talk about Mr. Maximilian. When did you first meet him?
Well, he was hired in June, so I would have met him then.
And do you know what he was doing at the carnival?
Oh, he was our magician. He was fantastic. You know, he did all sorts of daring stuff. He was the star at the end of the night. He did escape from the tank. He escaped from the handcuffs. He pulled rabbits out of hats. You know, animal-borne disease is no joke. Ask Carl.
Well, do you know if Max worked with anyone to put on that show of his?
Of course. Well, he had an assistant. And there was like lights, sound, all those sorts of people, and a prop master. You know, props are a big part of the show.
What sorts of props are part of his show?
Well, the handcuffs, the tank, the water, the hat, and, well, the gun. I only ever saw one, but it looked like I saw a video of the bullet catch trick he did. Looked like the one used in that.
Well, then let's talk about how the defendant's employees handled that gun. When did you last see that gun?
Shoot. That would have been July 13th. So I guess the
Objection,
day
Your Honor, to a lack of foundation, if I might explain.
Sure.
Now, we have it on a good faith basis that this witness doesn't actually know for certain that the gun she saw the night before the performance on July 13th was the actual gun used during the bullet catch performance.
Go ahead, and then if you could also just repeat the exact question you asked.
Yes, Your Honor. What we've stated on the record so far is she talked about seeing a gun when we were talking about the props, and she said she saw a video of the bullet catch trick, and she said the gun that she saw in that video of the bullet catch trick looked like the same one. She also testified that she'd only ever seen one gun at the carnival.
Got all that. And the question you asked her was?
The question I asked her was, when did you last see them handling that gun?
All right. Just to save time, I'll overrule.
Yes,
because,
Your Honor.
You know, she's established at least enough foundation, I think, that it looked like the gun.
Yes.
When did you last see the defendant's employees handling that gun?
It would have been July 13th, so the day before the trick.
What were you doing then?
Well, we were having sort of a shindig, sort of a get-together, so I was chatting up a storm. Had a lot to talk about because my boyfriend had just dumped me, so I'm single if you're interested.
Sorry, not my persuasion.
Not again.
Okay, ma'am. Well, is there anything else you did that day?
Well, like I said, we had this get-together. You know, it was a bonfire outside, and so, I don't know, things are proceeding as normal until Angel says, wait, I got something to show you. So he goes to the tent and he comes back and he's got a purple box. And he unlocks it and he pulls out a handgun, you know, the gun I'd seen before.
Well, how'd you react when you saw this gun?
Well, I got kind of nervous, you know. What are we shooting? He flings the bottom open, he puts in the magazine. What's getting shot, you know? Are we about to have another incident? But he puts one of the beer bottles up. It's a short one. I want to say maybe a Modelo, and takes aim and bang. You know, he fires. It's real loud, and you know it's not all the way done, so it kind of sprayed out.
Ma'am, when Angel was firing that gun, was he firing blanks or bullets?
Well, the bottle exploded. The glass went everywhere, so I thought a bullet.
Ma'am, do you know if Angel fired all of the bullets he loaded in that gun?
I don't know. I just know they passed it around for a while, and then they put it away. I guess I never saw him unload it or anything.
So do you know if any bullets were left in that gun?
I don't know. I don't know what happened to it after that.
Well, then let's walk through the night that gun was used. What were you doing the night Mr. Maximilian died?
I was in my tent. You know, 7 p.m., it's bedtime for the animals, and if Anderson Cooper doesn't have his last bottle before bed, he gets grumpy. That's the goal. I name all of them after my favorite celebrities. You know, Anderson Cooper, Andy Cohen, Neil Patrick Harris. Oh, I've got a type.
Well, what happened when you were in your tent?
Well, like I said, I was giving Anderson his bottle when all of a sudden I heard run, you know, and I poked my head out to see what could be happening out there.
Do you know why those people were running?
Well, I kept trying to stop people and ask, but there was such a crowd that, I mean, I thought maybe there was a fire, but I looked around and I didn't see any smoke. Eventually, someone told me what happened. And Max was dead.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Counsel, do you wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Sutton.
Good afternoon.
My name is Gordy Gwilt, and I have some questions for you on behalf of the Lampert Family Carnival.
Of course.
I want to start by clarifying a couple of things you said on direct examination. Because you talked a lot about a gun that you saw at the carnival, right?
Sure. Yeah, the gun in the lockbox.
You said that you saw Angel Ashmore loading a gun on July 13th, the night before the bullet catch, right?
Right, out at the bonfire.
That's right. And you were wearing your glasses that night.
I sure was. I always am.
But even though you were wearing those glasses, you couldn't see the serial number on that gun, could you?
The serial number? No.
You couldn't see if the gun had any sort of distinctive marks.
No, it just looked like a small black handgun. I'm not real familiar with guns. I guess I wouldn't know.
That's right. All you can tell us is you saw a small black handgun.
Well, yeah.
You can't tell us if the small black handgun that Mr. Maximilian used in his performance was the exact same gun, can you?
Well, I guess I don't know for sure, just that I'd only ever seen one gun at LFC, and it looked the same in all the ways that I can tell.
But you weren't a prop master.
Oh, certainly not.
You didn't handle the firearms.
No, I don't touch guns personally.
You can't tell us how many firearms were at that carnival.
Well, I can tell you I've only ever seen one.
But you don't know for certain if there's another gun at the carnival.
Was there?
Ma'am, I'm telling you, do you know?
I'd only ever seen one.
So then we don't know if there's more than one gun at that carnival, do we?
I guess if they kept it hidden somewhere. You think they did that?
They could.
Objection, Your Honor.
Withdrawn, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Now, Miss Sutton, Mr. Fritsch asked you if you knew if there was any bullets left in the gun that night, right?
Sure, yeah.
You'd agree with me that you cannot imagine that Mr. Ashmore wouldn't double check that gun before the performance.
No, I couldn't imagine why you wouldn't do that. You know, it's the kind of thing you ought to really double check.
That's right, you can't tell us if Mr. Ashmore did double check the bullets.
No, I was away that night. I didn't see what Angel was up to.
And on the day of the performance, you didn't see Mr. Ashmore that day at all either.
That's right, that's what I said.
You never went to the prop tent.
No.
You didn't see him load the gun that day.
No, I didn't.
You can't tell us if he loaded blanks into that gun.
I certainly hope he did. I don't know. I thought it was really irresponsible what he was doing the night before. I hope he checked.
Now that we talked a little about what you saw at the carnival, I want to talk a little bit more about you, ma'am.
My favorite subject.
Now, you'd agree with me, you like taking risks.
I do. I like to think I'm something of a daredevil.
That's right. And last summer you took a pretty big risk, didn't you?
What do you mean?
You broke the law last summer street racing like you told us on direct examination.
I did.
Street racing. And I noticed that you left a part of that story out, didn't you, Miss Oak?
What part?
Because when the police tried to pull you over, you tried to avoid them.
Oh, Bessie made a hard left and I followed.
You were trying to avoid the cops.
Sure, that's what they called it.
And then you were charged with resisting arrest and street racing.
That's right.
And you know that the district attorney might be upgrading those charges.
Yeah, they might. I feel real bad. I didn't mean it to be so reckless.
You might be facing 10 years in prison.
That was the maximum they told me, yeah.
And you can't imagine anything worse than going to prison, can you?
No, who would take care of the goats?
So you found a way out, didn't you?
Well, I made a deal with them. They said if they ever needed my help, that I could just come in and say what I know.
That's right, you have a plea deal with the state of Murata.
Yes, that's right.
And like you told us on direct examination, that plea deal comes with a couple terms.
Right, it has to be useful and truthful.
Useful and truthful. I want to talk about both of those things because it's not that it has to be useful to the people sitting in these chairs, is it?
I guess so.
It's not that the jury has to decide if it's useful.
I don't know.
It's not if the jury decides that your testimony helped them come to a conclusion.
I don't know.
No, the person that your testimony has to be useful for is Mr. Fritsch, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Farnsworth. Isn't that right?
Well, they're the ones I signed the deal with, so I guess so.
They get to decide if your testimony was useful to them.
I guess.
They are the ones who get to decide if you're being truthful.
I don't know how they're going to determine that, if they're going to ask you or I don't know.
But is that a yes to my question? It's these three men who get to decide if your testimony is truthful.
I think that's how it works, yeah.
But that's not the only reason you're on that stand, is it?
What do you mean?
Because you don't work for the Lampert Family Carnival anymore.
No, we parted ways.
The owner, Legacy Lampert, fired you last summer.
Yeah, that's correct. She said it was my fault, and if I'd been available to do my regular act with the cows, then it wouldn't have happened. I feel real bad.
You personally blame Miss Lampert, the owner of the carnival, for kicking you to the curb, isn't that right?
Yeah, it just didn't make any sort of sense to me.
So you think that getting to testify and get out of jail and to testify against Miss Lampert, well, that's a win-win in your book, isn't it?
Sure, I guess you could call it that.
So I want to talk about something that Mr. Fritsch didn't ask you, something that might not be useful to these attorneys. Because you had a conversation with Mr. Maximilian.
I had a number of conversations with Max.
You talked to him about the bullet catch specifically?
Yeah, I did. I asked him about it.
And Mr. Maximilian, he told you that he knew that trick was dangerous.
Well, he said it sure could be. That's true.
He said that he knew he could get hurt even if there was a blank in that gun.
Well, yeah, he said that you have to take firearm safety real seriously, every step of it, because people can get hurt.
Mr. Maximilian said that doing that trick, he knew he could be in danger.
I mean, exactly. You're using a gun for it.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Counsel, any redirect?
No redirect for this witness, Your Honor. We just asked that Ms. Udden be allowed to step down.
Thank you very much, Ms. Udden.
Good luck with your goats.
All right. Does the defense wish to call their next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Nicholas Nackay to the stand.
All right. Mr. McKay, please step forward. You have been previously sworn.
Got your breath?
Got it.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Sure. Hello there. My name is Nicholas Nackay.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Nack?
I'm a performer. I do a stage act, or I do mind readings and poem readings, all that hokey pokey, turn yourself around stuff.
And where do you work, Mr. Nack?
I work over at the Lampert Family Carnival. If you take a left on Rodeo, then take the 405 to the 101 to the 210 West, it's on your left.
Have you always worked at the carnival, sir?
No. I actually have a background in psychology. I used to have my own firm for a number of years.
What was your career like?
You know, very fun, fulfilling, not always fruitful. You know, I loved helping people, but, you know, many of my suppers were the ramen noodle, so I was open to a career change.
So, how did you transition to performance?
It was an accident. You see, about a decade ago, I was asked to be the entertainment at my grandson David's bar mitzvah, but I don't do jokes. So I figured I would use my psychological background to both entertain and advise the children.
How so?
Suggestion and showmanship. So I'd take their hands and I'd say, David, your heart's telling me you want to hang out with your grandpa every day and every night. Or, David, your palm's telling me you would like if you showered more than 2 times a week. It's begging me, actually.
And that led to your career change, sir?
It did, yes. See, David started hanging out with me and showering. So I started doing more bar mitzvahs, then weddings, and then finally, the carnival.
Then let's talk about that carnival. Did you ever meet a performer by the name of Maximilian?
Of course. I knew Max. He was a magician at our carnival.
Did you ever talk?
We did. We used to take our breaks together. We used to hustle down to the vending machine and treat each other to peanut M&Ms. We used to call it peanut time. I loved peanut time.
Did you ever talk to Mr. Maximilian outside of work?
Sure. We ran into each other one time at the shooting range.
When was this, sir?
It must have been sometime in the middle of June of last year.
Now, why were you at a shooting range?
Well, now that David is all grown up, he's in the military, which is great because they have hygiene standards enforced. Also, he's single and looking. So if you know anybody, you know, kind of big glasses, maybe likes animals, cosmopolitan, that's his style.
And sir, at that shooting range, that's where you saw Max?
Right, so David went to the bathroom, and he gets nervous in public. So after about a half hour, I look in the lobby and I see Max. So we struck a conversation.
What about?
Given the environment, firearms. You know, I still felt the exuberance and the shake in my arms from the shooting. So, you know, I asked him whether or not he ever used weapons in his magic.
What did he say?
He said that once upon a time he had, but nowadays he doesn't think it's a very good idea anymore.
After that conversation, do you know if that magician, Max, if he ever decided to do a trick with a firearm?
Yes, sir. So a couple weeks later, we started seeing posters around the carnival saying that, well, Max was going to do a trick called the bullet catch.
Well, before we talk about the trick, I want to talk about equipment. Can you tell us how props are stored at your carnival?
Sure. So for my act, I wear a magical robe. There's nothing magic about it. It's from Bed Bath & Beyond, but I got to write it off on my taxes. At the end of every day, I take off my robe and I walk to the prop tent. I take off my robe, I put on my pants, and then I walk to the prop tent. That's where everything's kept.
Sir, who's in charge of that prop tent?
A young man, a young man named Angel Ashmore. He's our prop manager.
Did Mr. Ashmore ever talk to you about firearms?
Yes. We did have a conversation one time.
Do you remember when?
Sure. It was June 13th of last year, which is the night before Max's, passing.
Where were you at the time?
We were at a little shindig after hours, by the campfire. Everyone was playing poker, but the way I grew up, I don't like to gamble, so I was just using my M&Ms.
And when did you talk to that prop manager?
So Mr. Ashmore, he's sitting next to me, and I notice he's not having anything to drink. And so I asked him why. He told me he wasn't planning on drinking because of the trick tomorrow, and he started walking me through everything. The hoops he got through to get the gun and the bullets, the whole plan for the next day.
What did he say?
Well, he said that, he had to prepare the gun, that he got the gun from a local gun club, that he was going to check all the bullets, all that.
Did you see the props manager the next day?
Yes, I did. The next day, I went over to the prop tent to say hello. Pants on. And I saw him.
What was he doing at that time?
Well, I saw him sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and, well, he was sitting with a gun and bullets. And he was looking through each of the bullets very slowly, looking at them, examining them, kind of like that.
Did you talk to him?
I tried, but he let me know that it was no time to gossip. And he shooed me off so I could let him do the rest of his checking.
Then I want to talk to you about what happened after that. Sir, were you there for that trick?
No. No, I didn't see the trick myself.
Did you ever see Mr. Maximilian again?
No, sir. No, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye or anything. I still do peanut time, but, now it's more of like I remember you kind of thing.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Proceed.
You may.
Good afternoon, Mr. McKay. That's what you said, right?
That's right. Before we start, are you hungry? These are burning a hole in my pocket. David doesn't eat chocolate. I'm happy to,
Actually, I'm definitely allergic to those, so I'll keep my distance for now. But I do want to talk about your testimony, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Sir, you talked to us a little bit about some of the performances that you do, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Certainly with all those weddings and bar mitzvahs, you consider yourself a good performer, right?
Sure. When I step on the glass for them, I make it a real thump.
Sir, you actually would say that all good performers, well, they make fantastic liars, right?
Sure, during your performance, you gotta tell someone what they want to hear and be convincing.
So
Even
follow
if that, oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, sir.
Even if it's that, you gotta shower.
So follow my logic, sir. If you're a good performer, you're also a fantastic liar, right?
Sure, when I'm performing.
And you said you have some experience in psychology too, right?
Bingo.
You'd call yourself a master of psychological manipulation, right?
Sure, yeah, that's what it says on my resume.
So let's talk about why that might matter for this case, sir, because you actually really want a specific outcome from this trial, right?
Huh?
Well, sir, you want Legacy Carnival to be held not responsible for Mr. Maximilian's death.
Sure, I guess.
It's because you still work for him, right?
I do.
You think this entire lawsuit, it's a threat to this carnival?
I guess so.
You think this lawsuit, it's dragging this carnival through the mud?
Yeah, I don't like mud.
More than that, sir, you think it's having an impact on you?
Oh, sure, yeah. People associate me with the carnival, just a hint.
More than that association, sir, you're losing money.
I guess so. I had something booked with Nickelodeon, a lot of stinky kids in the audience, but I couldn't do it.
You had to cancel that Nickelodeon appearance, right?
Right, but I'm excited to hear back from Cartoon Network.
You had to cancel other performances, right?
Sure,
Sir, you're losing money by this lawsuit just going on.
I guess so.
But let's get into some other things about your testimony today, because you talked with us about what happened on July 13th. You remember that?
July? Yes, sir, I do.
That was the night before Mr. Maximilian had that trick go wrong, right?
Yeah, that was the night before.
So you didn't talk with us about seeing a gun that night, right?
No.
I want to talk about why, because your memory of that night, it's not exactly great, right?
I guess I had a little bit to drink, but I was okay.
So your memory's not great, right?
Right, a little bit of Manischewitz.
You'd say it's actually pretty fuzzy, true?
Sure, a little bit.
You'd say you can't remember which of your coworkers was actually there that night.
Sure, some of them I don't know as well. Kind of mix up the strong men. They're both very, like that.
I understand, sir. I think you mentioned poker. You actually drank so much that you remember waking up face down on the poker table, right?
Sure, it was a long night, and, well, in my older age, it hits me a little harder after, 9 p.m.
So I want to be clear about one thing you might actually remember. Because you had a conversation with Mr. Ashmore that night, right?
I sure did.
You told us some details about that conversation. You said he has a plan for that night. That's what he told you.
Right, he said he didn't want to drink.
I want to talk about what you might not have mentioned, because he also talked to you about how he got the blanks for that gun trick, right?
Yeah, he walked through getting the gun and the ammunition.
He said, I went to the cellar.
Yes, he not like a wine cellar, but the gun cellar.
That's right, sir. He said, I went to the cellar, right?
Right to the cellar.
He said, I got the blanks for the trick.
Yes.
But then he said, that cellar, they made me get actual bullets along with those blanks.
Right, he sure did. He was very concerned. Talked about checking them.
So naturally you said, sir, hey, Mr. Ashmore, I can take those blanks off your hands, or excuse me, those bullets off your hands, right?
Sure, I guess.
Mr. Ashmore said, no, that's okay.
Yeah, no, he said for the prop tent they might need it in the future.
He said, those real bullets? Well, they might be useful for this carnival, right?
Yeah, not that long a pause in the middle, but sure, in the future for other acts.
That's what he said, right?
Right, that's true.
And then like you told us, sir, you actually saw him in the prop tent the very next day, right?
I sure did.
You saw him with those 2 different boxes of ammunition, right?
Sure, he was looking through the ammunition, checking all of them.
So you know that what Mr. Ashmore was looking, or excuse me, after Mr. Ashmore was looking at those 2 boxes of ammunition, they did that performance, right?
Right.
You know that Mr. Maximilian died as a result of that performance.
Yeah, think about it every day.
Thank you, Mr. Nack. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Brief redirect, Your Honor. Mr. Nack, on July 14th, did you ever see that armorer load a bullet into that gun?
No, just him very slowly examining and checking all of the bullets. No longer.
Thank you, sir. That's all.
Thank you. Any recross on that?
No recross for the witness, Your Honor.
All right, then the witness is excused. Thank you very much, Mr. Nack.
Oh, thank you very much.
Don't forget your M&Ms.
Oh, yes.
All right. Anything else from either side at this juncture? I know closings have been waived for this proceeding.
The defense rests.
All right, defense rests.
The plaintiff as well.
Plaintiff rests as well.